How's it going?
Hello. Good to see you.
How was your panel?
So far, very good. We were just talking about digital goods and interoperability and defining a program where digital goods can be first-class citizens on the internet, which is kind of a really nice contrast to your talk about physical, real-life goods being first-class citizens on the internet. Yes?
Mm-hmm. Particularly telling when it comes to things like the violins, where the whole governance structure around the violin is an integral part of what you're selling. Like violin with no governance structure, like who wants to own 15% of a violin, where the other 85% is played by somebody that wants to play it in the rainforest.
Yeah. I mean, so we hit so many sort of, they feel like conundrums when you first think about them, like how do we prevent that? But I know that you have thought a lot about all of this and that you have ways to show us how to prevent those disasters waiting to happen, maybe. From happening. So I'm going to give you the floor and you can take it from here. And I'll come back with questions towards the bottom of the hour.
Fabulous. That was really fun. Yeah, in a nutshell, it's all Ellen Rostrom in the end. That's just where it all goes. Now, somewhere here, I'm expecting Penguin.
Hello. Yes, I'm here.
How's it going, man?
It's going great. How are you?
I am in the middle of launching a thing, and my beard is becoming mighty.
Yeah, I need to pull on mine a little bit more. Cutting it.
Yeah, I've been enjoying this process of developing these white stripes over the course of the lockdown. You know, it's like from the pandemic. You know, I've just walked out with this Bride of Frankenstein beard. Now I know Kung Fu.
Well, if we had to pick a Confucius, you are definitely a great person to lead us.
Can very confuse us. Cool.
So thanks for joining us today. So I'll kind of lead you in. So we're talking about Mattereum today. As you kind of hinted with the violin structure, it's pretty hard to convert real world items to things that we can trade on the blockchain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Physical stuff is very, very distinct domain from digital stuff. They're very, very tricky to unite.
Do you think you could tell us a little bit about your experience with gold and Ethereum and kind of where Mattereum came from?
So, as one of the older folks in the crypto game, my first experience being paid in anonymous digital cash was in the 1999 across into 2000. And I spent about a year being paid 100% in a digital currency called EGold. And EGold had a gold reserve of, I think at peak, about $120 million worth of gold. And remember, in those days, gold was worth about a sixth of what it is now. So we're talking about, today's value, that would have been pushing $1 billion worth of gold. And they managed it using a digital currency system. So there was the kind of main EGold reserve, and you could have account-based centralized stuff in that. And then on top of that, there was a layer of anonymous digital cash operated by, of course, the famous Ian Grigg, the inventor of the Ricardian contract. And Ian had a legal structure that bound his anonymous digital currency directly to ownership of gold in a vault. And I never forgot that. Like, okay, how did he do that? And there was litigation between Ian and some other folks a little further down the line. All of the court documents were there. And it was a complete explanation of the model of that system, how it worked, how it was meant to work, all the rest of this stuff. So, from this, we got a really deep understanding of how this works. And when Mattereum came around, Ian is our chief scientist. Right? Largely a notional title now because he helped us figure it out at the beginning and is off doing other things, but we can pull him back in anytime we need him. And so the same kind of fundamental logic that Ian called the Ricardian contract is what Mattereum started with. Mattereum's initial concept was we were going to offer the Ricardian contract engineering to all of the other companies in the blockchain world that were going to want to do real-world physical asset stuff. And we spent 2 years trying to sell it to them and then realized that nobody else was coming. Like, oh, it's just us. So then we retooled to be like, okay, we'll do the physical asset thing, and here we are.
Great. Yeah, that's definitely one of the entry stories that a lot of people have heard with EGold and kind of creating value and bringing it onto the blockchain. So yeah, thank you very much for helping to carry that through. And as you say, like one of the main ways that we progress is by making sure that we're kind of the feet on the ground and pushing things forward, without kind of the doers or people that are thinking about these things and putting our experiments into practice, we wouldn't make the progress. So I think it's really critical that you are making all this progress. So thank you.
Well, it's certainly a new horizon, isn't it? I mean, if we could get decent fine-grained control of physical things over the blockchain, it puts tens of trillions of dollars of assets within easy reach of smart contracts. And that really begins to open up some interesting use cases. Like, imagine what happens to DeFi when you could get hold of things like houses and cars inside of lending contracts. The decentralization of things like Airbnb, you just need the ability to get a good, solid handle on an apartment. Then it can become smart contractable.
Yeah, even like the ability to kind of disrupt like an eBay type market is just so powerful, because as I've heard you talk about before with like the consumer economy, is that we're kind of like buying these things that have a life cycle that exceeds our own like intent for them. Mm-hmm. And there's no real way to kind of capture the life cycle of these long-term semi-permanent goods that originally we bought as investments that now you can't pass off. There's no idea of warranty or even kind of what you have.
It's the knowledge that erodes. Have you ever owned an IBM ThinkPad or a Lenovo ThinkPad?
Yeah, I've had one of those.
So they kind of run forever, right? They run and they run and they run and they run. They've got all kinds of clever things like liquid handling channels. So if you spill a beer on them, it flows around the electronics rather than through them. It's a nice touch. And if you're trying to explain to somebody who's about to buy a laptop, you should not buy this brand new Dell, Asus, whatever it happens to be. You ought to buy a second-hand ThinkPad for exactly the same amount of money. They always look at you like, what? How do I know I'm going to get a good one? And you're just kind of like, they're all good ones, right? That's the point. But unless you've been working with computers for a good long time, you don't have any easy way of pointing to the statistical evidence for your gut feeling that they're going to get a longer lasting, more durable, higher spec computer with a secondhand ThinkPad than with a brand new something else, right? And it's the ability to get that statistical evidence where you can say X secondhand is better than Y new that allows you to start doing this comprehensive displacement of demand from new production to old production, right? And that's critical, right? Like, we live in a world where we have relatively flexible needs, right? And if we can retarget those needs onto things that have already been manufactured and pull them out of the waste stream, pull them out of, whatever throwaway place they were going to wind up, what we're doing is we're displacing primary manufacturing. And that either frees up the primary manufacturing to do something more important, or it causes that primary manufacturing to stop existing, which reduces our footprint. It's a way of really thinking systemically about how we get way more fulfillment of need for every unit of matter available. And that to me is the fundamental thing that we're shooting for with Mattereum. Yes, there'll be a phase where we build out the gateway between DeFi and the physical world, and it'll be amazing, right? But the thing that we do after that is we build the road between the blockchain and the carbon economy, and we start figuring out how to do like really substantial carbon reductions by optimizing the connection between what already exists and what people need.
Yeah, the other key thing that you just brought up that it really stuck out to me. Some of the other things that I've heard you say is like previous goods being better than what's produced now. Like the jeans example is just something that stuck with me so strongly.
I'm wearing them right now. You're looking at them, right? I don't know how old those jeans are, but if you look on eBay, you look for vintage Levi's, they have warehouses that have every color, every size, every leg length. These things must be the size of the place in Indiana Jones and the Temple and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, And it's just because denim from the 70s, 80s, 90s lasts essentially forever. We hadn't invented designed obsolescence at that point. They're better than new. Like, they're substantially better than new. Who wants to wear new jeans? Similarly, this thing that I'm wearing, I've started wearing this stuff basically exclusively. It's like these really heavy cotton canvases or ducks. They just last forever, right? I mean, I think this thing is maybe 10 years old, and you just wear it and wear it and wear it and wear it. And it's not like a sweatshirt, where the sweatshirt, every time you put it through the laundry, it comes out just a little less of itself. With these things, they start having the texture of cardboard, and after they've been through the laundry like maybe 50 times, they begin to feel like clothes. And that is an approach. Like, is it any less functional? No, it's exactly as functional. Why don't we do this all the time? Because if we do, we sell a lot less clothes.
Exactly.
And, in the age that we're in, would it hurt us if we began to take an approach where we started considering lifespan? And, if you change style, you sell it, you get pretty much full value for it because it's only just about broken in. Somebody else buys it, they don't have to break it in. Looks as good on you as it does to them. And you begin to have clothing that operates like fleet property. Bicycles like fleet property. Cameras like fleet property. You want a DSLR, you buy it, it costs you $6,000, you sell it again, you sell it for, $5,900. You had a DSLR for 3 months, it cost you $100. Right? It's the efficiency. If the data is perfect and the guarantees are extremely strong, the gap between buy price and sell price narrows and narrows and narrows for the goods which are truly durable. And that changes the manufacturer incentive to produce goods which are truly durable, because when you sell those things, right, and this, by the way, is where OpenSea is such a nice thing. When you sell those things, if you can arrange to take a residual every time the thing is sold, we've now got the correct alignment of incentives for the manufacturing of goods which will last forever and have many owners. And that's what you want for environmentalism. You want a world in which if you made it right the first time and you get paid every time it's transferred, your incentives are to make things which are permanent, beautiful, and will be lost and will be used forever. And that's what we need. We need an economy of permanence, and it's that residual payment when the thing is sold which gives you the incentives for the economy of permanence.
That's perfect. Yeah, and I have the exact antithesis, like opposite of that example, with my refrigerator. My refrigerator, the last two that I've bought, so they have a 1-year warranty, and of course, 1 year and 3 months later, they break. So you're pretty much like forced to buy the extended warranty because they figure we covered you enough that we needed to, and your critical device that is responsible for making sure that your food is right is now a worthless piece of junk a year later unless you spent that money.
We engineered it very carefully to fall over, right? To fall over exactly 1 month after the warranty was dead. Right? And there's somebody whose job it is to make sure that it falls over then and not any earlier. Yeah, you know that. Right? Imagine being that guy. What's your job? My job is to make sure that the refrigerators don't fail inside of 12 months. Okay? But do fail instead of 13. Who is that guy? How does he live with himself? What's your job? I'm the refrigerator fragility engineer. I have to shape exactly the decay curve for a refrigerator so they don't die too soon and they don't last too long, and that's our point of peak profitability. And it's like,
yeah, how much do we have to do of a class action suit? It's all like an expected payout. Like, how much is it going to cost us rather than making goods that are environmentally responsible and consumer friendly?
We apply the formula like in Fight Club. Right? And this is just, it's terrible, right? This is not, I understand how we got here, but we can't stay here. This is a bad place, right? I talk about physical things as being either malevolent or benign, right? And almost everything in your environment is malevolent, right? Clothes with polyester, you wash them, they're poisoning the ocean, right? The detergent itself, well, that's kind of killing the rivers. The water that comes out the tap, okay, it's very drinkable, but it's packed with chlorine, and if you're in a crappy area, there's lead in the pipes. It's hard to find an object in your immediate physical environment that is truly benign, right? Organic food, if it wasn't, like harvested by people that were pathologically underpaid, like illegal immigrants, often are in America, organic food qualifies, right? Clothing which will last a really long time and is made out of things like wool, arguably okay. Cotton, if it lasts for decades, okay-ish, right? Getting things which are genuinely not bad for anybody and still fill human need is hard. And the result of that is that we're constantly surrounded by objects which are simply externalizing costs from us onto somebody else. And what the hell is the good in that? Right? I don't want to own things which are externalizing costs by making somebody else miserable just so that I can have a thing. So how do we make a world that works?
Especially when you think about all the technology that we use and like where all the semiconductors and chips are coming from for all this stuff. It's not coming from responsibly sourced places.
No, I mean, I've had this off and on campaign to get people to stick pictures of Chinese factory workers on the back of their phones like a sticker, right? Just to remember where this stuff comes from and who really makes it. Needless to say, that was not a very popular campaign. People found that hard to relate to as a proposal. Can't think why.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the things that we're talking about are not really popular thoughts or opinions, but it's something that, as global warming and the world is changing, we have to consider. And a lot of these places that even say that they're responsibly recycling, there have been like journalists that are tracking it, and it still just gets shipped overseas and dumped.
That's right. Because people are lying. They're just and to me, like, everybody's got their story about how blockchain is going to change the world, right? Kill the Federal Reserve. That was a popular story for quite a long time. Now we've got a lot of stuff like radical markets. There are lots of models of how it's going to work. The DAO, I'm going to build all these community DAOs, governance. Everybody's got the model. For me, the blockchain is just the thing that is the computing architecture which is close enough to what we need to solve the governance problems which are wrecking the world. Right? It's an exquisitely finely tuned technology for doing governance because you can see who's making the decisions. You can see what data they're making the decisions on. You could get them to pre-commit to decisions because they lock the decision into a smart contract. And then when the conditions are met, the money automatically flows. That's what you want, right? We promise that if inner city crime rises to this level, we'll release $28 million a year for school funding from that point onward. Right? Amazing. Well, okay, you could pass a law, but then people will change the law, right? What you want is unbreakable commitments from government, right? A law that can't be taken back. Represent it as software. Build it directly into the budgeting system. You don't even see the money. It just goes. And that sounds a little absurd, but the more I learn about how law is made, the more I think it's like trying to run a business on paper. The lawmakers have no real, they're not sitting there with laptops in Parliament or the Senate, passing backwards and forwards the model of what the world will look like when the law is passed with all the data attached to it. That might happen when the law was being drafted. But for the most part, they're a bunch of retired lawyers or professional actors who happen to be called politicians staring at pieces of paper that they barely understand the underlying data structures of. And then signing off on that's going to be the way the world runs. It's appalling. I mean, it's just the worst thing ever. And to me, this is the target, right? Really durable automation of the creation of law so that you can actually build the numerical models of things like the economy or the climate or the healthcare system. You build the numerical models right into the systems of government. And you say, when this model explains these characteristics, you're going to have to change the budget in these ways. And then all the arguments are about, well, how accurate is the model? Anyway, I'm ranting, but you get the notion, right?
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's perfect. Like Sparrow originally asked me at the start of today, like what I thought about basically the on-chain and how things, if we should try and hide how the blockchain works, or if it's important to have that education. And I think you're demonstrating further the importance of like understanding how things work and being able to see how your politician is voting. That's like a critical part that right now we have pretty much no visibility unless you want to watch C-SPAN or something all day. And even then, you know, the chances of them actually talking about something or making a decision is probably going to be in lawyer speak.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, lawyer speak, you know, I mean, I've spent a lot of time learning to understand kind of what lawyers are saying. The problem is not so much lawyer speak. Lawyer speak is a symptom, right? The problem is that the material world is really complicated, you know, and it's too complicated for the tools that we had available other than being vague and complicated in English to manage. Like almost all of a legal contract, it's just exception handling code on a process. You know, like take a package delivery, right? That, you know, 300-page boilerplate that FedEx makes you sign when you ship a package with FedEx, it's just a list of exceptions like you would get at the bottom of an if-then statement, like a try-catch block in Python.
Mm-hmm.
You know, try is like 15 lines. I will deliver the package to your house. If you're not in, I'll come back the next day. If you're not in the day after that, I'll try one more time. Then I'll call you and it'll be in the depot. And then you have to come and pick it up because we won't bring it again, right? Try. Catch, 300 pages of legal text.
Finally, destroy box.
Right? You know, auction to highest bidder. Boom, there you go. So that as a notion, right? You know, what Mattereum are doing, or we're starting with the simplest assets. This is a silver bar rather than a gold one. If this was a gold bar, it would be worth a lot of money. But it's a silver bar, right? And you can see on it, there's a bunch of metadata about the bar right here. Here's your metadata. And, you know, manufacturer, signature, content of silver and weight. So bars like this, but made of gold, in vaults in Singapore from a friend of ours. And this is basically the bringing of the EGold mindset right up, bang up to date for the blockchain. And the critical thing about that model is the gold bars are numbered and what they call allocated. So were one to have an NFT that was tied to one of these bars, the NFT isn't a generic promise that somebody will give you a gold bar if they have one left when you come to the shop. It's a direct promise that we are storing your gold bar with the following number, and it will damn well be there when you ask for it, right? And that is really the key, right? It's your property in their vault, and the NFT records the fact that your property is in their vault. The NFT doesn't record the fact that they owe you a bar, right? And that totally changes the precedence of operations in something like bankruptcy proceedings, because if it's your bar, it cannot be used to pay somebody else's debts. The only place that bar can go is back to you.
I think that's critical. And like one of the things we talked about with like MetaFactory is like NFTs have the ability to capture the status of an item. So like, you know, for something like one of the Star Wars toys, if you open it and it's no longer in the box, you know, it instantly loses a lot of that value because the value is how it's stored and the way that it's preserved. So being able to, like, with the blockchain, you can essentially put it back in its box. If you had a certificate of authenticity with, you know, the doll or you know, whatever it is, that that pairing of the data with the physical item is key to its ownership and certification of what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the vaults are integral to that. So for the Shatner drop, which by the way is Monday, right? Ooh. William Shatner's 90th birthday, so we are beavering away Monday, right? Now, watch us make a balls of it, and it's actually Wednesday, but I'm telling you, it's going to be Monday.
Well, I'll be there Monday for sure.
Monday.
There's also another crazy project.
They're going to tell me it's still Monday. Very good. So yeah, we're in the pre-fight nervousness period. Like, oh my god, we're going to miss his birthday. Crap. But Monday, right? The objects are in a vault, right? The NFT goes up. The NFT has within it a legal document that says, hey, by the way, right? If you are the owner of this NFT, you've got the right to get the thing out of the vault, right? And then these things trade on OpenSea, buy, sell, trade, auction, swap for a spare poodle, whatever you happen to want to do. And the authenticity is that they've never left the custody of the people that originally told you they were authentic, right? I vouch that this is authentic. Now I put it into the vault. The vault guarantees not to touch it other than to keep it safe. And I guarantee that it went into the vault and I didn't take it back out again. Really solid locking where there's a good tight tie between the NFT and the thing in the vault. And a little further down the line, we're going to put a whole new class of legal structures between the NFT and the thing in the vault, which will continue to provide it protection when it leaves the vault, which is the really clever part.
Yeah, definitely. And that's kind of one of the things that I've been helping work on with a project on the sidelines through this for you. NTFA, never touch fiat again.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah. So especially when we're talking about gold bars and we're talking about how to verify where they are in a vault and ownership, I think that's really critical. And especially with NFT days, I wanted to make sure that we incorporated them into some NFTs. So I have a quick demo of a site that me and my team worked on for the NTFA site, if you want to see the demo.
Yeah, show me things.
So obviously this is still a work in progress, but my team, the NTFA team, has been hard at working.
Is that a Lambo is that a gold Lambo with a rocket launcher on it?
It's actually better than Lambo. This is a Vector V12. It's kind of like one of my dream cars from when I was a kid. They hand make these cars, and they usually make like 20 to 40 of them a year.
Oh, wow.
And I remember as a kid, just one of my friends had a poster of these with the machine guns as the headlights. So,
but now we live in a new world, which is why it has to be a rocket launcher.
Yeah. And so as we see in the app, as they scroll down, I basically draw the question of what is the value of currency, and the currency specifically that we're using, where it's been depreciated and people are able to print pretty much as much as they want. So we got the Vector,
I love that.
helping people win.
Yeah. Because I grew up playing video games. It looked exactly like that. That looks like a fun game to me. So this concept, right? You're talking about going directly from Bitcoin to gold rather than going through dollars, right? That's the core of the crux of the idea.
Yeah, the crux of the idea is to make sure that the value NFTs that we're creating have real world value, as well as the intrinsic aesthetic value of amazing art. So we're making sure that the value proposition is baked into a hard asset like gold. And so specifically, we secured 100-gram bars, 50-gram bars, and 1-ounce bars that we're going to sell from NTFA.
Very nice. I like that a lot. And this, right? This is how you really get the world to move, right? A nice strong link between Bitcoin and gold. It's kind of like Bitcoin here, Ethereum in the middle to handle all the NFT business, and then on the other side, the NFT, the gold world, right? That framework, it doesn't matter how much gold you've got or how much Bitcoin you have. You can just adjust your risk slider between Bitcoin and gold. The hardest thing, which is commonly traded on one side, and this hyper risky techno futurist stuff on the other. And you just decide, okay, you're going to be 95% long Bitcoin, 5% gold, or you're going to be 30% Bitcoin, 70% gold. Wherever you want to be, whatever your risk tolerance is on any given day, you just adjust your Bitcoin to gold ratio and you're golden. You're literally right where you want to be.
Yeah, I think one of the other amazing parts about it is that it's one of the first true values lock that I've seen, aside from a bonding curve. Like, so bonding curve basically locks in part of your price into what you're buying. But this is locking real world gold that someone can go pick up in Singapore through Mattereum's contract that assures you that, legally the gold is tied to the NFT. So
And
I think
once you've got the gold in those NFTs, you can feed them right into the DeFi ecosystem right there. Lock them and borrow against them, whatever you want to do.
So we had a question come in on the Discord, and that is also a question that has been in the back of my mind since I joined the blockchain space, because I came basically to try and tie physical artworks to blockchain records.
There you go.
So what is your preferred mapping? What is your preferred method of tying the physical? I know that you said with the gold bars, it's the serial number, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if we're talking about other kinds of assets, what would be your preferred method of tying that physical asset to the blockchain record?
So there are two questions here. There's where is the asset, and then there's what is the asset. And those are two subtly different questions. So the way that I like to think about this is that you get a condition report for the object. So you know exactly the condition it's in and what it is. Then you push it into a vault. And once it's in the vault, its condition should no longer change. The vault essentially stops time for the asset. And a vault that doesn't do that is a bad vault, right? Time stops. The asset continues to sit. So when the asset comes back out again, you need to be able to take the records from T1 at the beginning and compare it to the thing that came out of the vault T2, and you need to verify that these are the same thing, right? Mm-hmm. And it's that verification that these assets are the same asset that is the hard part. So initially, one of the technologies we're using is a chipset by a company called ARCS. And that does a digital signature of an NFC, right? So you hold your phone against it. It has a key pair on the chip. It does a digital signature on the chip, and then it reports back to your phone what it is.
Yeah.
And if you stick that onto an object which is sufficiently fragile, it's not coming off without damaging the original goods. And that gives you a pretty strong guarantee that if the chip is on there, it's on there. But how long is the safety window of that technology? Because probably, if every year there's 1 or 2 or 5% chance it gets hacked, at some point, gradually the security goes down to zero, particularly if somebody, for example, breaks one of the big crypto algorithms. So you have to think of this as being sliding windows of different kinds of security. For the Stradivarius violins, we ID them by CAT scan. So you literally just take the thing down to a medical clinic and you have them take a 3-day x-ray of it. And then an expert compares the CAT scan to a previous CAT scan and says, okay, these match, these are the same violin. But that as an approach, it's $1,000 or $1,500 for the CAT scan, and then you've got to pay the expert to make the judgment call. So it has to be kind of horses for courses. And there's a window of safety with the CAT scan between, when we started CAT scanning violins and getting these records for them, to the point where we can do some kind of weird molecular reconstruction to make something that looks identical on a CAT scan, and the forgers have molecular printers.
Wow. I mean, I remember reading about some projects where, diamonds were digitally laser imprinted, and those
numbers on.
And those records were stored on the blockchain so that diamond could then be authenticated. Which brings me to another question, because I believe that was a project that was done on a private blockchain.
The Ledger, probably.
Yeah,
Ledger?
It was. So the difference between private blockchains and public blockchains in the last 2 minutes that we have before the next speaker?
So, I mean, the bottom line is that a private blockchain is going to get altered by anybody inside of the group that created it, right? If they have a big legal problem, we are all hosed, whoa, right? Then they're going to go back and they're going to change state on the private blockchain because there's nothing to stop them doing that, right? The only way that it makes sense to use private blockchains for anything is if you're constantly synchronizing the state vector to a public blockchain. So if they do go back and edit history, it's obvious. And I think that
so accountability rather than always keeping, just leaving a trail.
Leaving a trail. But that said, why would you not use a public blockchain for something that was important, right? Like, I really, really think that, if you're going to do this kind of smart property stuff, yes, it is expensive to use the public chain, but that will change. The public chains are going to get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, right? If not Ethereum 2, then something else will come along, or you'll wind up with hybrid systems all glued together by Polkadot, or it'll all wind up on Avalanche. There are a whole bunch of different potential futures here. We're hedging our bets. We're going to be doing some stuff with Avalanche very soon. All of those systems together, I've no doubt at all that 5 years from now, the price of a blockchain transaction will be like a rounding error on a nickel. And at that point, I think you're just going to see an enormous flight of physical goods onto the chain, because you need it for environmental and you need it for anti-counterfeiting. And those are, two gigantic problems. Amazon keeps getting hauled into court for selling counterfeit goods on their platform. And to me, this is how we break into the mainstream, right? I mean, it's really about, you go shopping, you come back like, Apple gives you an NFT wallet on your new iPhone, and you go shopping, and the stuff that you buy from big brands shows up in your phone as NFTs, and you can drag the NFT onto the eBay button, and it automatically lists it with all the condition reporting stuff there. You drop it off at this store, they'll do the condition report, they'll take the goods, they'll put them in a box, and when it sells, they'll ship it for you. And it's just a single integrated process. It's greener than hell.
I want to live in your world.
Well, we're gonna. That's the point, right? But that's all. I mean, to me, this is just the thing the blockchain is going to go mainstream for doing.
It's the thing that it is going to do.
Because it fills two really huge, obvious, visible social needs that very ordinary people can immediately understand, right? You don't want to throw it away when you're done with it. You want to sell it, and you don't want it to fall apart before you sell it, because then you're losing money. Like, we don't need to think about Hayek. We don't need to think about monetary policy. We don't need to think about the gold standard. We don't need to think about Bretton Woods in 1971 and the deflation of the dollar. We don't have to think about central banking, right? We don't have to think about encryption. You just have this experience of when you're done using something, somebody else buys it at a really good price, and nothing is wasted. And it's all the same technology. The payments might even be in Bitcoin, but at the end of the day, it's just a single integrated system that handles the goods.
And being able to account for all of the external costs is key, because without something like blockchain technology managing that automatically, it's just never going to happen, I don't think.
That's true. And I mean, it's not even that it becomes automatic, but it provides places for the people who are solving those problems to work together to solve them. Because right now there's no venue, right? If you take the people that are unionizing in, say, Indonesia to try and get fair pay for the shoes that they're making, and you take the people over here who are complaining that the shoes are always falling apart because they aren't made properly, these people could cut a deal. Like, you pay us so that we're working 40 hours rather than 65 hours, and we will make shoes that don't fall apart because we're exhausted and we make mistakes. How would that be? Right?
That's true globalization, not market capitalism globalization, right?
The big corporations work very hard to hide the people that manufacture your goods from you. But once you've got something like a blockchain in the mix, imagine an Apple union that was made half of consumers and half of Apple workers discussing the behavior of the Apple Corporation, right? Consumer unionization, right? Here's 10 million people, they pay $10 a month, right, into a fund which tests all Apple new products for security, privacy, ergonomics, longevity, litigates when Apple breaks consumer protection laws, pushes them on privacy, pushes them on things like kicking good apps out of the App Store, kicks them on unfair business practices, right? That would be $100 million a month budget from Apple users to improve Apple's behavior and treatment of users. Well, if you're going to build that consumer union, why would you not also have Apple manufacturing people working in, tandem with that union to talk about labor practices, to talk about software licensing, to talk about how whatever is being done which is exploiting Apple workers?
All of the governance decisions.
All of the governance. Its natural counterparty to corporate power is you have to add buyers to the unionization of workers to get this kind of encircling of the companies, where the workers on one side, the buyers on one side and the workers on the other have the companies sandwiched in the middle, and they're both arguing for their interests relative to the corporate overlords. This is how we get the corporations back under control, because the state is not going to do it with antitrust law.
No, I agree.
Anyway,
we've overrun. I'm sorry. I can talk to you for about an hour more, though. This is really, really good stuff.
Only an hour? I'm pretty sure we could talk for a week and only touch the surface.
All right. Well, thank you very much. It was fun hanging out, and I look forward to buying some of your gold, Penguin, if I can afford it.